This is Amud Yomi, Gemara Berachos Daf Lamed Dalid Amud Aleph, and we pick it up on the bottom of Lamed Gimel Amud Beis. 4 lines from the bottom, says the Gemara, quoting the Mishnah, Moidim, Mishtakin. If someone says Moidim 2 times, we silence him. Amar Rav Zeir Kulam Shema Shema, and who says Shema 2 times, Kamer Moidim Dami, is the same thing as saying Moidim twice, and we silence him. Meisvei asked the Gemara. Hakari says Shema ve'kaifla. Someone says Shema and repeats it. Arei meguna. It is disgraceful. Meguna hu dahave. But clearly it sounds like it's meguna. But davishtuki lo mishakinale. But it sounds like we're not going to silence him. Says the Gemara, Lakasha Adam Milsa V'Tani La. One is where he says each word of Shema, and then he goes on to the next. Vada Amar Psuke V'Tani La. The other one is where he says each pasuk. That is the first case when he says each word twice. It does not appear that he's saying that there's two gods, two entities, and therefore you don't silence him. It's just Megona. Whereas if he says the psukim twice, then it sounds like there's two different gods in such a person. We would silence. How do you know? Maybe in the beginning he didn't have kavana, then he had kavana. Abaye answers on the top of Lamdal and Aleph. That itself is a disgrace. What your chavrusa to Hashem? If he didn't have kavana, we should smack him on the head with a blacksmith's hammer until he has kavana. Says the Gemara in the Mishnah on the top of Lamed Aleph. That's a form of minas. If he says that the good ones should be blessed. Continues the Mishnah. Someone's davening vita and he makes a mistake. Yavar acher taktav, another person should take his place. And at that moment, one who's asked to take over should not be misarev. As we'll see, usually you don't immediately agree to be the shliach tzibur, but over here you should. Where does the next person begin? From the bracha that this person made a mistake in. And Rashi says that the case is talking about where he skipped one of the brachas. Of course, they did not have sidurim. We have to remember that. So he skipped the bracha, and then when he tried to go back, he was all confused. So that's when we have someone else who takes his place. And the Rashi as well speaks out that usually it's a form of tznios and not to go up to the Amid right away. But in such a scenario, one could. Should not respond amen after the brachas of the Kahanim and Me'atira. Of course, they could confuse him. This is a debated point. La halacha, most people do not say amen when they are the sheikh sibur, but there are opinions that hold one is allowed to. If there's only other kain aside for he himself, he says kabi shenat dochen. Why again? Because he might get confused. We'll speak about this in the Gemara. But if he's muftach, and of course in the world of a sitter, it's much easier that what he could dochen and then be able to continue his tefillah, then he's allowed to do so. Says the Gemara Tanur Rabbanan. So we mentioned the Mishnah that if you're taking over someone else, then you're not misarev. You should go right away. But says the Gemara, if someone just asks you to daven, you should be misarev. You should say, no, I'm not worthy to be the sheikh sibur. V'meina misarev, if he doesn't do such. You're like a tavshel, a dish without any salt. And if on the flip side, you too much, you just eventually have to realize they have no one else to go daven. Because that's too much salt. So what should he do? Says the Gemara. Second time you move a little bit, but you're not sure. And Shalisha places Raglav Yari the third time, you get up and you go take the Amid. Tanur Rabbanan learn that Raisa Shalisha Rubin Kashim Yitin Yaf. There's 3 things that excess of them are bad, but moderation is good. V'lein Sa'ar v'melach, yeast and salt, v'sarbanos, and refusal. Like we're seeing that there is an element you should refuse, but too much is not good. Amar Avuna, we're smack in the middle of Amid Lamedalid, Amid Aleph. First one in the line is visarvanos. Amar Avuna, Ta'ab B'Shal Rishayin, his own made a mistake in the first 3 brachas of Shemona Esrei. Chayzel Reish goes back to the beginning of Shemona Esrei. Bam Soyis, made a mistake in the middle brachas. Chayzel Atachaynin goes back to Atachaynin. Ba'achraynas Chayzer Li Avoida. This is the second person when he takes over. Where does he start from? Either the beginning of the Shemona Esrei, Atachaynin, or Ritzei, if you get messed up at the end. Rav Asi Amar, Emsayis Ein Lahem Seder. Middle brachas have no order, and therefore you don't have to go back at all. Masar Rav Sheishes asks the Gemara on Rav Huna was the first shita. Mechanu Chayzer says the bright Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, where do you go back? Mitchila bracha shetazeh. To you after the Rav Huna. Rav Huna said you don't go back to the bracha you made the mistake, but rather you go back to the beginning of Shon Esrei, or you go back to Atachaynin or Ritzei. What do you mean? The Mishnah said explicitly, go back to the beginning of the bracha. Ravuna Amsayis Kulu Chada Berachos Ninu. Ravuna learns that all the middle ones are considered one bracha. Amar Rav Yehuda, you don't ask for your needs in the first or the last three brachas. Ella b'emsayis, only in the middle. The first three brachas is like an Eved who's praising his master. So of course, you don't make a request before you finish the praises. Emsayis, the middle term of the Rabba, you're asking for what you deserve. So you make your request. And Achraynis, you already got it. V'niftar v'aylechlain, you're leaving, so therefore you don't ask for more. Tan Rabbanan continues the Gemara. There was a story with Talmud. He went to daven in front of Eliezer, and he was davening too long. The Talmidav said to Rav Eliezer, Rabbeinu, Kama Arkanuza, how lengthy is this guy davening? Answers Rav Eliezer, Amar Lehen, is anyone that davened more than Moshe Rabbeinu Dechsev? It says about Moshe, davened for 40 days and 40 nights on the last narrow line. So it can't be davening too long. Shav Ma'is was another story. But Talmud Echashav Ne'ativ of Neir Rav Eliezer went davening for the Amud in front of Rav Eliezer. Vayimekatzer Yaiser Midai. Amrlo Talmidav said to Rav Eliezer, Kama Katzer Nuzah. This guy's davening too short. Amrlo Rav Eliezer said, Kol Mekatzer Yaiser Moshe Rabbeinu. Is anyone that davens as short as Moshe Rabbeinu? Dechsev Moshe Rabbeinu says, Kel no Rafan no la. That was the whole tefillah. So says Rav Eliezer, there's a place for davening long, there's a place for davening short. There's no such thing as too long or too short. Amar Rav Yaakov Amar Chista. Kol hamevakish in the third white line. Rachamim al chaver ein tzarich la'azkir shemai. If you're davening for someone else, you don't have to mention his name. Shneimar kelner rafan Allah and Moshe Rabbeinu daven for Miriam. V'loi kamat shema de Miriam. Tana Rabbanan, 3 lines at the bottom. Elu brachas shanim sheicha b'hem. These are the brachas of Shemona Esrei. That person bails. Avos tchila v'saif. Hayda maidim tchila v'saif. V'mbal l'suach b'saif kol bracha bracha v'tchila kol bracha bracha. If someone wants to bow at the beginning and the end of every bracha, we tell him not to do it, aside from the 4 places that we said, Avos, Tchila, and Saif, and Ritzei, Haida, Tchila, and Saif. Amar Rav Shimon ben Pazi, in the last line, Amar Rav Shimon ben Levi, Mishabar Kapara, Hedyoit Kamosha Amar knew it, or Hedyoit, that's what we spoke about, that why you only bow those 4 times, the beginning of Avos, and by Maid, and we turn over to Lamadal and Beis. But Kohen Gadol, b'seif kol bracha bracha. V'hamelech, techila kol bracha bracha, b'seif kol bracha bracha. And we've learned in Sharon B'tfila how what we see over here is the greater one is, the more he has to be machniya himself. So Kohen Gadol bows every single bracha, showing achna. And a king at the beginning and end of every bracha. And we conclude, Amar Rav Yitzchak, we're nachmenu l'dim varshli b'nei Rav Shimon Levi, Hediyah k'moshe amarna b'Kohen Gadol, techila kol bracha bracha, Amelech kivin shekara, shovei nezoike. If he doesn't bow at every bracha, he bows down, he never gets up. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Vikach lo Shem l'spalel, Shlomo finished davening, Kom l'vnei mizbeach Hashem mikroy al barkov, that he got up from the mizbeach, from kneeling on his knees, so we see he bowed the whole time, and then he got up when he finished. We'll pick it up from the 2 dots as we Baruch Hashem. We'll conclude the parak in the next year, b'siyata dishmaya.